Hello, wonderful people of the internet. Here I am, Mr. Sebastian Miranda. I'm back. Back to record a review of two pieces of media I've seen. One of the Batman, and the other one, well, you see, my strategy was to review one big movie, one small movie every review, but I realized that I don't really, there wasn't really another movie I wanted to see with the Batman. And I realize this kind of doesn't give me an excuse to talk about TV shows. So today, I'm going to talk about Peacemaker as well. So I'm just going to start with that. Peacemaker. Do you want to taste it, I guess? Peacemaker, directed by James Gunn and directed by a few other people. I was very excited for it because I love James Gunn and I love the Suicide Squad. And this show was pretty good. Pretty good. I think everyone has said this, but some of the earlier episodes are a bit weak going into it. You kind of don't know where it's going. But I think towards the end, once you figure it out, it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. I think James Gunn's biggest weakness as a director is that he thinks he's much funnier than he is. I love his movies, but the highlight of his movies were never the humor necessarily. It was always the heart and his unique visual style, which he carries over into this. But since we have 8 hours, we have a lot more of the comedy of James Gunn, which I find to be very boomer-ish, I guess. Like I said, the directing is still magnificent. Even the episodes that are not directed by him were directed by these guys, who I'm going to credit here. They're both very well done and keeping in with the style of the show. The music, of course, the opening music sequence destroys the idea of clicking the skip button. James Gunn, you succeeded in that. It's an absolute triumph, and I love watching it. I legitimately just watch it on YouTube because it's so weird. It's not just stupid funny. It's very unique, and it's so crazy. You gotta watch it. You just gotta watch it. I don't know what about it. John Cena is so committed to this role. I think in other movies like Bumblebee, you can tell that he's kind of a limited actor. But in this particular role, he's so perfect. He just, everything about it, he was made to play this character. And I hope there's more stories with Peacemaker in the future. The villains, who are kind of played by multiple people, now make more sense if you've seen the show. It's great. The presence, it's very menacing, of course. Annie Chang, in particular, does a really great job. Every scene with her, she has to play multiple emotions, basically, is all I'll say. And she masters them all pretty perfectly. In terms of the extended cast, you have to give special props to Jennifer Holland, who does a great job as this kind of hardened soldier type who you think the arc is going to be that Peacemaker has to kind of open her up, but it's not quite that. You have to give props to Steve Agee, who does an amazing comedic performance as well. And of course, Danielle Brooks is a highlight of the show. She's just very charming, very quickly, instantly likable. At a certain point, you hope that she makes it out. You hope Peacemaker's more problematic elements. At a certain point, you wish you just leave the rest of these guys. But she doesn't, and it makes for a better show. It's a very original take on a superhero show. It's rated R, but it's very humorous. The themes of the show are very good. And you see a Peacemaker who is in trouble with his morals, his moral judgments, and at the end of the series he has to question them, question what's right and what's good. Oh, I didn't even mention Robert Patrick. Robert Patrick does a great job. He hasn't been in anything significant since Terminator 2, and he does a great job here. I hope he gets more roles because he's really good. I always love to see an actor who kind of did one thing and then didn't really get a break. Get to do something big. Nobody's story is ever finished until they die. So there's always you can never write someone off. You don't know what's going to happen with them, what role they're going to get or whatever. The last shot of the movie is very telling, and it's very heartwarming, but it's also very tragic. And again, you only know when you see it. And very much like Guardians 2. It all comes together at the end beautifully. But let's move on to the Batman, which even though it's also DC, is extremely different. It's extremely different. Where do I start? I guess I'll start with the direction. Matt Reeves, who directed the Apes movies, is probably one of the best action directors, or maybe the best action director in America working today. Because you can never discredit those like amazing people working in Hong Kong, Asian cinema, or whatever. But uh, in terms of American cinema, I don't think there's too much competition. Matt Reeves' action scenes and overall style and presentation of this movie is completely flawless. It's amazing. The score is great. It will go up there as one of the great scores, and especially for a Batman movie, that's saying something because we already have so many great Batman scores. Each of them so different, and this continues that legacy. Robert Pattinson gives an amazing job. He may be my favorite Batman. He's definitely up there. He's much more recluse. He's very different than Christian Bale. I think a lot of people are using the fact that this movie is so good as an excuse to shit on the Nolan movies. I don't think that's fair. Both of them are going for different things. I will say, if you're a comics fan, this movie is probably way more satisfying for a comics fan than the Nolan movies would be. The villain, played by Paul Dano, is good, but at certain points I feel like it definitely has those Jared Leto vibes of actor trying to show off how crazy they are. Specifically, the scene where him and Batman talk without giving too much away. The scene where they talk, and he's doing a lot of that there. But his performance, other than that, is so good, I can give it a pass. And of course, Colin Farrell and Stanley Tucci also do a great job. It's amazing seeing Stanley Tucci do something completely different than he's used to, and he just nails it. In terms of the extended cast, Zoe Kravitz has amazing chemistry with Batman as the Catwoman. She may be my favorite portrayal of the character. That's probably a safe bet to say so. Jeffrey Wright's performance as Jim Gordon is right up there with Gary Oldman for sure. In terms of the story, I think it was very smart the way they approached this, making this like a Seven style crime thriller. People are saying it's like a noir, and when people say noir, I imagine the 40s or whatever. I imagine it's more like the thrillers by David Fincher we would get in like the 90s. It feels like they're mimicking that more so. Specifically something like Seven. I think it's really smart from both sides of the genre. I don't think this will go down as like one of my favorite crime thrillers. A crime thriller, that's a genre I really love. I don't think this will go down as one of the best of those. But I think using Batman as the detective in a crime thriller is a very smart twist on that genre, because it adds an extra level of tension to the fact that he's not even really allowed to be solving these mysteries, and everyone at the police are continuously trying to arrest him along with arresting the criminals. So many thoughts about this movie. It's 2 hours 55 minutes, which means inevitably when you're watching in the movie theater, your butt's going to feel a little weird, but in terms of the pacing of the movie, it felt justified. And honestly, I was one of the people who didn't like that. I didn't like that it was so long. I felt that was stupid. But it feels like they used the time well, and it feels like they used it to really get in the head of all these characters. And the best thing I can say about it is that Batman has a real arc. You know, when you look at the other movies, I think there are arcs in the Nolan movies. In the Tim Burton movies, I would say there really isn't, and that's maybe by design. But in this movie, you have to really delve into Batman's character in a way we haven't seen before. And I think it's very smart. Gets the pulse of Batman. And we get to see a very heroic Batman. Probably the most heroic Batman we've ever seen. And there's certain scenes that beat the Avengers. I mean, the Avengers, they're beating like world-ending threats, but in Batman, he really saves people, you know, and that's really the difference. That's what really matters more when you're watching a superhero movie, genuinely. I think the obvious question of what's better, this or The Dark Knight, or Batman Mask the Phantasm, I would say personally, I think The Dark Knight is still better, but it's like they're both amazing. I think both of these will go down as classics. My only complaint is there's a scene that kind of sets up future events and future stories. I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. I didn't like that scene. Could have done without it. Other than that, I don't have too much to complain about. I'm sure there's 1,000 nitpicks that people are going to come up with. I don't care. The story is good. I was entertained. I had a fun time, and it has some deep it asks some deep thoughts. And so this was my little DC review, I guess. And that's all you need. I'm still trying to figure out how to end these videos. But goodbye. Bye. What are you still doing here? Bye. Go. Come on.